Hello, welcome. Hopefully, everyone had a good day. Tonight, we are going to pick up where we left off last night. We're going to go to chapter 8, but we're going to do a brief kind of overview of 6 and 7. Chapter 6 was the Singleton's journey, at least part of the way, anyway. Um, the 7th was the journey for the Hellhounds and their missions to engage the factions that are running the country. So now we are on to chapter 8, A Hunted Man. Archie sat in his office contemplating the last few weeks of action. He had lost troops in this fight, but somehow almost losing Amber had been a bridge too far. Mays had walked because Archie refused to let Amber die. The hounds backed his decision to not leave her behind to die in that camp, but he couldn't shake the questions that decision had brought to the forefront of his thoughts. What's the point of living in a world that's devoid of loyalty to those that support you? What cold calculus had decided who should live and die in this new world? Archie knew he wouldn't find the answer in this office. It had been several months since the crucible began, the boot camp, insertion after insertion into rival factions' territory to collect resources, both human and not. And while his team had been exceptional, Archie feared it was never going to end. It was in these moments of doubt that Archie needed a sign that he was on the right track. As he drifted off to sleep in his office, Archie wondered, is this all there is? The answer was coming sooner than he knew, but that answer created far more questions for Archie Lee. The only thing louder than a base-wide alarm was a base-wide vision. That morning, the Hell Jumpers barracks vibrated with both. Archie Lee sat up in his bunk to find every radio, walkie, and comms headset cycling through the emergency channels, each blaring a slightly different version of the same message. Priority Elite, all teams to muster. Repeat, all units to muster for immediate briefing. Ready, room 8. Down the hall, the Sears quarters, normally off limits, glowed like a club on fire, its blackout curtains pulsing with an eerie violet light. Bond passed Archie in the corridor, shuddering. Whole psychic nets lit up. Somebody just dropped a nuclear bomb in the pool. Alita and Tiant were already geared up by the time Archie reached the central muster point. Instead of Hawk or his XO, the room was run by the Seers themselves. Their faces all sharp bones and dark circles. At the center of the floor, Sita sat with her feet tucked under her, eyes closed and mouth moving in a feverish whisper. Her skin looked bleached, her hair fully silver now, and the purple of her irises seemed to have swallowed the whites of her eyes. Even Mays was there, pressed to the wall, arms folded, acting unimpressed, but sweating through her collar. The hum in the room was not quite sound, not quite electricity. Archie felt it crawling over his skin as he entered, every scar and wound lit up like a bad memory. Sita will address the teams, said one of the junior seers, waving Archie forward. You're with us for this. Archie had never liked the seers, and the feeling was mutual. They were a breed apart, psychic royalty, and they acted like every moment was just a rehearsal for Judgment Day. Sita waited until the doors were sealed, then opened her eyes. We saw a revelation, she said, in the flat, placeless accent that made her words seem unhooked from time. All the seers saw it, even the ones we've never spoken to, even the ones in enemy hands. She let the silence drag, scanning every face. It's not just a power, it's a fulcrum. A family on the move, 4 adults, 2 children, all posthumans. One is like a sinkhole. He eats power, pulls it into himself, makes it go away. Where he walks, others cannot see, not even us. We know they are searching for 3 more, but where they are is muddy too. We have made drawings of their faces. Archie felt the room tense. Sita and her seers were not in the business of humility. He has a partner. She can cut through your mind like a wire. Another child bends matter without touching it. Another with fire, and the other adults. One seems electric, and the other is a regenerator or healer. They are moving together towards 3 apart. One can move things just like the child. One is superhuman speed, and the other controls electricity with excellent control. We saw their trail running from the wreckages, dead scavengers, and abandoned caps. But every time we tried to fix their location, it blurred. They are a paradox. It's not the three apart that concern us, it's the others traveling together. They're the last best hope or the worst threat, depending on who gets there first. Maze raised her hand, sarcastic even now. What do you want us to do? Can't fight what you can't see. Sita fixed her with a stare. You can. They leave a mark. Find the aftermath. Follow it forward. They cannot stay hidden forever. The man who eats power, he is the key. You bring him in, or nothing that follows will matter. All our futures lock to him now. Alita frowned. Why, if he just turns off mutants? It's more than that, Sita said. He's a reset. He could bring the old world back and erase us forever. If the wrong hands get him, the next pandemic will make this one look like a training exercise. Archie tried to imagine someone whose gift was to erase the entire nightmare. To put the genie back in the bottle, he wondered if that's what he wanted and decided he wasn't sure. Sita reached out, grabbed his wrist, fingers icy and strong. You will rescue him, she whispered, the words directly drilling into his frontal lobe. You have to. Remember my words. Archie tried to pull away, but she wouldn't let go. The images came thick and bright, a family in battered homes, faces smeared with dirt, a woman clutching her head as if she was trying to keep her brain from spilling out, a boy with flaming arms but eyes full of steel, a smaller boy with a tablet in his lap swaying as the wind moved, a man with taped up glasses walking into a wall of fire coming out the other side, everything hanging motionless in the air. The vision flared, then collapsed, and Sita let him go. Archie gasped, head splitting, trying to understand the vision he just received, but it made little sense. Where are they? Sita shook her head. We see where they were, never where they are. We know they are tethered to your hounds. The threads pull you together. We don't know the timeline, just the ending. The meeting dissolved as quickly as it began. Sita vanishing back into the dark corridors of her quarters. Bond looked like he wanted to vomit. Tiant muttered, well, shit. May said nothing, but her eyes flicked to Archie, calculating. They were halfway back to the barracks when they passed Hawk in the hall. He was deep in conference with Dr. Scrape, their voices hushed but intense. Scrape held a sheaf of charts, stabbing at them with his finger. Hawk's face was set in its usual permafrost, but Archie noticed the tremor in his left hand. All hands, we need every asset, even the half-finished ones, Scrape was saying. If Sita and her ilk were right, we don't have time to wait. Hawk nodded. I'll brief Major Lee and the Hounds. They're the only team that survived 3 missions in a row, and Sita says they are critical to the future. Scrape scowled. They're damaged goods. Exactly, said Hawk. They know how to improvise. He noticed Archie and motioned him over. Lee, you heard the vision. Sita seemed to take preference with you. I noticed. Good. You have 2 hours to assemble your kit, then we are wheels up. You're on the lead. Any questions? Just one. If we do catch them, what then? Hawk smiled, and it wasn't a nice one. You bring them here alive. After that, I'll decide. Archie saluted, then caught Scrape's baleful glare. The doctor smiled, sharp white. Try not to die. You're more interesting alive. In the next 2 hours, the entire base shifted into overdrive. Every squad in the base was activated. The Hellhounds, the Cataphracts, the Alpha Squad, and the Razor Squad scrambled to gear up. They each had a location to search, coordinates marked on a map to follow, with several of them coming close to known Liberator or Lightbringer encampments. Archie walked as Hawk assembled a command team. Sita and 2 other seers, Raven and Dawn, Dr. Scrape, and 3 of Hawk's most trusted lieutenants. Each of them forming additional units and with locations to search. This was starting to concern Archie. He had not seen this kind of response for anyone. In encampments and bases around the country, other forces began to mobilize as well. The race for the singletons was about to begin, and no one wanted to lose that race. By the time the squad was fully kitted, the base sounded like a hive on fire. Drones lifted off from the roof, fuel trucks lined up at the motor pool, the comm center throbbed with data streams, each one tracking a different anomaly across the dead heart of the country. Bond summed it up as always. History's never been made by the people with the most to lose. We're about to prove it. Archie checked his sidearm, then looked to his team, Alita, Tiant, Vaughn, Smith, and lastly Amber, standing a little apart. Bandaged but upright, her eyes as pale and cold as the vision itself. Archie looked over his motley crew and began to let the words of the seer sink in. You'll rescue him. From what or who Archie hated. The cryptic, unclear messages from the seer, but they had always been spot on in their assessments after the fact. Archie Lee wanted to make sure everyone who went on this mission was ready to deploy. Evans, report to the medbay, get cleared. We head out in 30. Somewhere out there a family was running, and for the first time, Archie found himself quietly hoping they got away. Amber gave Archie an odd look, half smirk, half grimace, as she turned toward the medical building. She pushed the double doors open, then hesitated at the bottom of the stairs. Her fingers traced the frost pattern she unconsciously left on the metal handle. A man who could erase what she's become. Terror crawled up her spine, but beneath it pulsed something worse. Hope. To be normal again, to feel warm, to bleed without crystallizing. She took the stairs two at a time, as if outrunning her own thoughts. Amber's release from the med bay to active duty was a non-event. Head nurse barely glanced up as she handed over a packet of blood thinners and a bottle of antibiotics. Watch the cold, St. Freeze. The nurse deadpanned. You frost over again. You're cleaning your own bandages. Archie waited for it at the clinic's entrance, shoulders hunched against the morning cold, fingers jammed deep in his pockets. Medbay sign off on you? Amber tapped her icy fingertips against her thigh, leaving tiny frost patterns on the fabric. Frostbite's good to go, she said, using her field name with deliberate emphasis. Just try not to put me in direct sunlight. Archie felt the knot in his chest loosen at her joke, a welcome relief he hadn't realized was overdue. Archie's mouth quirked up at one corner. Partners in crime for this field trip? Military escort duty now, is it? Amber's eyebrow arched like a cat's back. For a few minutes, they walked the perimeter, taking the long route towards the ready room. No guards, no alarms, just two survivors limping along the chain link fence. The sky was washed out pink, ground raw with mud from last night's rain. They didn't talk about missions or seers or Hawk's weird new obsession with the ghost family. They just let the silence settle in, almost comfortable. Amber stopped under a busted security lamp. You know what I miss? She said, staring at her feet. Hot coffee. Used to go through 2 pots a day pre-virus. Now it's always cold, tastes like dirt, and regret. Archie smiled. Never liked the stuff, but I'd drink it if you made it. She gave him a look, half exasperated, half something else. That's the worst attempt at flirting I've ever heard. I wasn't, Archie started, but Amber grinned and he shut up. She leaned into him, shoulder to shoulder, the cold from her skin leaching through his uniform. The moment lasted until Sita appeared, seemingly materializing from the shadow behind the admin block. She wore civilian clothes, but her posture and eyes screamed seer. Every movement deliberate, every word rehearsed 1,000 times before it left her mouth. She glanced around, then gestured for them to the concrete alcove away from the main path. They're watching, she said, not bothering to explain who, but they're listening for the wrong things. Amber leaned against the wall, wincing. You got a prophecy for us? Sita ignored the sarcasm. You're part of this, both of you. The vision wasn't just about the family. It was about who finds them and what you do when you do. Archie frowned. You want us to help them escape? No. In order for the change to happen, there is an order to what happens. I want you to remember you have choices. This game isn't played by heroes and villains. It's played by pawns who remember they can move sideways. Amber snorted. Cryptic much? Sita turned to her, voice softer. You're bound to the girl. Her power, your power, they resonate. You may be the only one who can save her when the time comes. If you don't recognize the opportunity, fate will. Amber's jaw tensed. Why us? Sita hesitated as if weighing how much to reveal. Your future is bound, that family, both of you, because you're not like the others. You're not zealots. You still think the world can be better. Archie looked away uncomfortable. What are you not telling us? Sita stepped closer, her eyes boring into Amber's. You'll know when it happens, but if you choose wrong, the next world will be colder than you can imagine. Amber squared her shoulders. What am I supposed to do? Remember this, Sita said, and pressed two fingers to Amber's temple. The contact lasted barely a second, but Amber gasped, knees buckling as the shock of a vision burned through her mind. She clung to Archie's arm until it passed. Guards rounded the corner. Sita faded into the alley, gone before the MPs even noticed. Amber shivered. What did you see? Archie asked, steadying her. She shook her head. I can't. It's like it's locked in a box, but I don't know. But I know we're going to find them, and it won't end well for anyone if we're on the wrong side. They walked in silence for a while. Then, as they passed a row of dead vending machines, Amber stopped and pressed her palm against cold metal. Frost crept across the glass, blooming into a perfect crystalline bird. Wings spread, beak open, as if ready to scream. She snapped it off, handed it to Archie. Keep this. It will never shrink, never melt. When you see it again, you'll know what to do. He turned the bird in his hands, feeling the brittle chill, the beauty and fragility of it. What does it mean? Amber met his eyes, hers as blue and bottomless as ever. It means don't let them break you, not even for me. They walked on, the sun just rising, the iceberg eerily frozen in his hand. As they prepped for the new mission, the questions surrounding the visions he and Amber had been given weighed heavily on Archie. As he walked towards the transport, Archie checked his side horn, then looked to his team. Alita, Tion, Bond, Smith, and lastly Amber, walking next to him a little apart, bandaged but upright, her eyes as pale and cold as the vision itself. They moved out, the door sealing behind them, the whole world balanced on the edge of a razor made by broken people. He wondered what the days ahead hold. The Singleton family and the Earlys had covered impressive ground, but the journey across the country stretched into months. They zigzagged through Nebraska, Missouri, and into Kansas, constantly rerouting to avoid encounters, clearing debris blocked roads, and stopping to scavenge supplies every couple days just to survive. Brennan's shoulders ached as he held the plastic tube steady, watching the amber gasoline trickle into the red container. Matt kept a lookout while Logan and Diane crept through the ransacked convenience store across the street. They'd done this dance 100 times now. Matt teaching Brendan which cars to try, Logan learning to spot overlooked canned goods on high shelves, Diane developing an uncanny sense for which houses still held supplies. Mary and Sam had developed a system for clearing the road. Sam's wiry frame braced against the steering wheel for control, while Mary, with sweat soaked hair plastered to her forehead, positioned herself at the driver's door, one hand on the frame and the other pushing with all her might. Together they'd guide abandoned sedans and pickup trucks down embankments, watching the rust flecked metal disappear into tall grass after they'd siphoned every last drop of fuel and stripped anything useful from the interiors. Later they'd huddle around a small fire, Logan's head on Matt's shoulder, as Diane divided 4 protein bars between the 5 of them. Sam and Mary sharing knowing glances as they all pretended it was enough. As the weeks stretched into months on the road, tension wound through the family like tightening spring. Diane caught herself checking the horizon more frequently, her jaw clenched whenever she thought of Maddie, Seth, or David waiting somewhere in the vast unknown ahead. Each mile added weight to the question she couldn't voice. Would they arrive too late? The family had been traveling west for half a year when fate intercepted them in southern Kansas. The sun had barely crested the horizon when Matt spotted them through his binoculars, 2 dozen figures marching in lockstep down the fractured asphalt, their silhouettes sharp against the pale morning sky. Matt watched from the abandoned water tower, counting silently. 23 soldiers in mismatched tactical gear but identical posture, back straight, weapons held at precise angles, faces obscured by baklava's despite early fall heat. The Hell Jumpers, once military members, police officers, conspiracy theorists, doomsday preppers, now the closest thing to an organized military left in what had once been the United States. Their vehicles, 3 armored Humvees and a transport truck, bore the distinctive lightning bolt insignia that had become as feared as the light ring the bloody sun. How many? Diane whispered from behind him. Full patrol, maybe 2 dozen, Matt replied, adjusting the focus on his binoculars. They're moving with purpose, not just a random sweep. In the months since society's collapse, Matt had developed an almost instinctive understanding of the Helljumpers' operations. Unlike the chaotic Lightbringers with a religious fervor, or the Liberators with their literal Burning Man impressions, the Helljumpers operated with military precision, patrol routes, scheduled sweeps, established checkpoints. It was as if they had been waiting for civilization to fail so they could implement their own version of martial law. There's something else, he added, focusing on the transport truck. They've got prisoners. Past the binoculars today, and she took a sharp breath as she looked through them. They're just kids, teenagers, maybe early 20s. Matt nodded grimly. Recruitment. The word tasted bitter in his mouth. Below, the patrol had stopped at a crossroads. The rear doors of the transport truck opened, and 8 figures stumbled out, their hands bound behind their backs. Even from a distance, Matt could see they were young. Most appeared to be in their late teens or early 20s. 2 hill jumpers shoved them into line, while another addressed them, gesturing emphatically. What are they saying? Brendan asked, crouching beside his father. The boy's hands glowed faintly blue in the dim light of dawn, his power responding to his emotional state despite his efforts to control it. Can't hear from here. But I've seen this before. They're giving them a choice: join or serve as labor. He didn't mention the third option, execution, for those who refused both alternatives. The one speaking to the prisoner is called General Hawk. His thoughts are pure derision, Diane said suddenly, still looking through the binoculars. He looks familiar. Why? Matt felt a chill run through him as he took the binoculars from Diane. So the infamous radio voice had a face and rank bars to match the ruthless authority behind those broadcasts. If it truly was General Franklin Hawk Harrison, they were in serious trouble. Before the plague, Harrison had been just another lieutenant colonel, spotless record, limited influence, largely forgettable. But when society collapsed, he'd found his calling. The man had transformed a desperate band of survivors into the Hell Jumpers, a ruthless paramilitary force that expanded with every town they liberated. Matt still remembers Harrison's radio broadcast crackling through the salvaged receivers, the calm, reasonable voice discussing order, discipline, and the necessary sacrifice required to rebuild civilization. Matt's grip on the binoculars tightened. Remember the guy the Pentagon kept shoving out to spread propaganda? That was Lieutenant Colonel Hawk Harrison. Looks like he moved up in the world. If he is here, there is something big, Matt said, taking the binoculars back. He focused on the white-haired man gesturing to the young captives. Even at this distance, Hawk's commanding presence was unmistakable. A ran-robbed, straight posture, crisp movements, the polished brass of his uniform catching the morning light. Why are they taking them? Logan typed on his tablet, showing it to his stepmother. Diane hesitated before answering. They want people they can train, people who will follow orders without questioning too much. And people with powers they can use, Brendan added darkly, looking down at his glowing hands. Below, the scene continued to unfold with military efficiency. Really? Really, you two? Hey, cut it out. Thank you. Stop being turds. Yes, hi, Comet. Do you need to say hi? Do you need to say hi? Yeah, hi, Comet. Yes, hi, Papa. I love you too. Stop being a turd. Go be a good boy. And people with powers they can use, Brendan added darkly, looking down at his glowing hands. Below, the scene continued to unfold with military efficiency. 2 of the captives stepped forward, apparently accepting whatever offer had been made. The others were herded back into the transport truck. Matt watched as General Hawk personally shook the hands of the new recruits before they were led to one of the Humvees. It's time to go, Matt said, lowering the binoculars. They're heading this way. The family descended from their observation point quickly, gathering their meager belongings from the abandoned utility room where they'd spent the night. The thunderous chop of helicopter blades and the distant growl of engines jolted the family awake. Matt's choice of the water tower had given them clear sight lines through the night, but as dawn broke, the strategic advantage transformed into a death trap. Excuse me. Go lay down. Remy Jean. Go lay down. Go. Yeah. Matt had watched from the tower of the Hell Jumpers, methodically captured every survivor hiding in the abandoned town. In less than 2 hours, they cleared building after building with military precision, starting from the town hall in the center of town. They must have felt confident they had found everyone they were going to find to do a little recruitment show. But now they were expanding their search outward towards the water tower and outlier buildings. If the Hell Jumpers looked up, they'd be cornered like rats in a steel cage. The Singletons made their way down the ladder, following their planned escape route. He only prayed they didn't have a psychic or sniffer with them. They barely made it to the tree line before the patrol reached the base of the water tower. Matt pulled his family deeper into the forest, finding a dense thicket where they could remain hidden while still observing the soldiers. Standard sweep pattern, he whispered as the hell jumpers sufficiently cleared the utility building. They'll check the tower next and fan out to search the immediate area. Diane pulled Logan close, her hand covering his mouth gently when he began to rock. Self-soothing behavior that could make noise and give away their position if they weren't careful. Matt watched her close, her eyes in concentration, knowing she was using her telepathic ability to calm him. After a moment, Logan stilled, his eyes glazed slightly as Diane's influence soothed his anxiety. Matt was grateful Sam and Mary chose to stay back in the vehicles rather than come into town. Hopefully, they were watching closely to what was happening. The hell jumpers moved with practiced precision, two soldiers ascending the water tower, while others established a perimeter through gaps in the foliage. Through gaps in the foliage, Matt could see General Hawk consulting a tablet, occasionally gesturing towards different areas of the abandoned town. Matt's jaw tightened as he studied the hell jumpers through the dense foliage. They'd been pushing their territory farther west lately, he whispered, dirt from their hasty retreat still clinging to his weathered knuckles. This is the third, no, fourth patrol we've had to evade since crossing the Missouri. Look at how they're quartering the town, building by building, the way Hawk keeps checking the tablet. He wiped sweat from his brow, leaving a smudge of earth across his forehead. They're hunting for something or someone. This isn't just another recruitment sweep or territory grab. Could they be looking for us? Brendan asked, his voice barely audible. Matt shook his head slightly, though the question had already occurred to him. I highly doubt that. We've kept hidden, avoided confrontation, no reason they would be. Has to be something else. The thought nagged at him as they watched the methodical search continue. The hell jumpers were thorough, checking buildings they'd already cleared a second time, using handheld devices that Matt suspected were scanning for heat signatures or other signs of life. After what felt like hours, but was only probably 40 minutes, the patrol regrouped. General Hawk appeared displeased, gesturing sharply as he addressed his soldiers. Then, with military Christmas, they returned to their vehicles and continued down the road away from the forest where Matt and his family hid. Only when the sound of engines had completely faded did Matt signal it was safe to move. We'll circle back, grab Mary and Sam to see what they were looking for. He decided could be supplies we can salvage. The town was eerily silent after the Herald Jumpers' departure. Matt led his family carefully through the abandoned streets, alert for any soldiers who might have remained behind. They reached a small municipal building that had clearly served as a temporary hell jumper outpost, maps still pinned to walls, empty ration packets scattered on floors. But it was the basement that told the real story. Matt insisted on checking it alone at first, and was glad he had. When he returned upstairs, his face was grim. What did you find? Diane asked, reading his expression. Interrogation site, he said simply. But the words carried weight. They all knew what that meant. The hell jumpers were notorious for their enhanced questioning techniques, torture by any other name. Recent? Brendan asked. Matt nodded. Very. Bloodstains haven't fully dried. He pulled a folded paper from his pocket, a document he found in the basement. I was wrong. They're hunting for someone for sure. They're hunting us, the Singleton Dunn family, with a hand-drawn picture of everyone's faces. Why are your boys' faces on there too? How the hell do they even know who we are? Diane's hand flew to her mouth. Why us? Logan tugged at Matt's sleeve, showing him the tablet where he'd typed. Because we're different? Matt looked at his younger son thoughtfully. Logan had always possessed an uncanny ability to see connections others had missed, even before his mutation had manifested. I don't know, Monkey. This makes no sense. We've been all but invisible, but maybe you might be right, he acknowledged. Matt ran a hand through his beard, frustration evident in every line of his face. The hell jumpers are building an army of powered people. That much is clear, but why target us specifically? What makes our family worth hunting? He tapped the paper, finger landing on the empty spaces where two faces should be. And why aren't Mary and Sam included? It's like we're looking at a puzzle with half the pieces missing. But not you, Diane said quietly. You haven't changed. The unspoken implication hung in the air. Matt's implied immunity to mutation. If General Hawk had somehow learned of his ability, We need to move, Matt decided, his voice hardening with resolve. We get back to Mary and Sam, we head north away from the recent movements. As they gathered supplies from the abandoned town, Matt found himself studying his family with new eyes. Brendan, tall and powerful, his hands occasionally glowing with contained plasma. Logan moving small objects with his mind as he packed his few possessions. Diane, her eyes sometimes unfocused as she sensed the thoughts and emotions of those around her. Sam's ability to heal people and Mary's electrical powers. Then there was Matt himself, outwardly unchanged. He tried countless times to summon some hidden ability, concentrating until his head pounded, but nothing ever manifested. What could it mean? Perhaps his apparent normalcy was itself the anomaly, something potentially more valuable than any visible power. Perhaps he carried within him the last pure echo of what humans had been before the world fractured and remade itself. Matt, lost in thought, was startled when Diane gasped, her hand flying to her temple. Someone's coming. Someone looking specifically for us. They tensed, ready to flee, but Matt hesitated. How many? Just one, an older woman. She. Diane broke off, her eyes widening. She knows we're here. She can see us. Matt drew his gun, positioning himself between his family and the direction Diane indicated. Within moments, a figure emerged from the tree line. It was a slender woman with silver hair and distinctive violet eyes. She walked with unhurried confidence, her hands visible, empty of weapons. Matthew Singleton, she said, stopping at a respectful distance. You can lower your weapon. I've come alone, and I mean no harm to your family. Matt kept the gun steady. How do you know my name? The woman smiled slightly. I've seen you in visions for months now. Until recently, it was just me seeing you. But now all the seers have. It's why they're hunting for you. Normally, I can see where you've been, but 6 weeks ago, I was able to see where you are in real time, then where you're going to be. The fact that this changed and that I would be here with you makes me very uncomfortable. I am Eleanor. I'm a seer, a type of clairvoyant that guides my friends and family. I serve as the primary seer for the Honorable Way community. Matt exchanged a glance with Diane, who gave a small nod, her silent confirmation that she sensed no deception from the woman. What do you want from us? Matt asked, still maintaining his protective stance. Eleanor's violet eyes focused on him with unsettling intensity. Father, our leader sent me to find you and convince you to come northwest with me. It's not what I want, Matthew. It's what you carry within you, something unique in this broken world. You've noticed, haven't you? You haven't changed like the others, no outward mutations, no abilities manifesting. The observation struck uncomfortably close to Matt's private concerns. What of it? What of it? It's not absence, but presence, Eleanor explained. You possessed what scientists in the old world called a null field, a biological dampening effect that neutralizes the plague's mutagenic properties within a limited radius. But I suspect you haven't yet grasped what this truly means. The violets of her eyes deepened as shadows lengthened around them. Matthew, your null field goes beyond preventing mutation. With enough time, it actually undoes mutations that have already occurred, and perhaps something even more significant. Other nullifiers exist in our community, but none can accomplish what the seers and I have witnessed in our visions of your future. Matt felt the weight of this revelation pressing down on him like a physical force. That's why they're hunting us, he realized aloud. The hell jumpers, their patrols, the documents we found with our names. Eleanor's expression darkened. Yes, General Hawk has his own seers. Though he keeps them compliant, they glimpse fragments of what we've seen clearly, that your family holds the future of humanity in your genetic code. She glanced over her shoulder toward the settlement. And you're not safe out here. The Lightbringers have their own corrupted visions that have led them to believe your abilities are a divine punishment to be destroyed. The Liberators have heard rumors of your importance to other factions and seek to capture you simply to deny others your power. The fate of our species now hinges on you, regardless of whether you ever asked for such a burden. Logan tugged at his father's sleeve, his tablet displaying. Are we in danger? Matt placed a reassuring hand on his son's shoulder, though he felt anything but reassured himself. We've been in danger since the world collapsed, Monkey. But now there's purpose to it, Eleanor added gently. Your family isn't just surviving, Matthew. You carry something unique in this new world. You're carrying the possibility of a future. Diane moved closer to Matt, her voice low. I can sense her sincerity. She believes what she's saying. Believing doesn't make it true, Matt replied quietly. Then to Eleanor, I have no powers. If what you say is accurate, why should we trust the Honorable Way more than any other group? They haven't emerged yet. They haven't been needed, but they will. We don't seek to control your ability, but to protect it while we learn from it, Eleanor answered. Our community's founding principle is that no individual should be sacrificed for the collective, even for something as important as human continuation. She gestured toward the settlement. We offer sanctuary, not ownership, protection, not imprisonment. As if to emphasize her point, the distant sounds of engines rumbled from the south, the direction they had come from. Eleanor's head snapped toward the noise, her violet eyes widening. The hell jumpers have circled back, she said. The full patrol, they've picked up your trail and something else. Matt didn't waste time questioning how she knew. How long? Minutes, not hours. They have vehicles, tracking equipment, at least one seer guiding them. Eleanor extended her hand. Come with me now. Our community is prepared to defend you. The decision crystallized in Matt's mind with unexpected clarity. For months, they had been running, surviving, day to day, avoiding other groups out of well founded suspicion. But they couldn't unrun the implications of what he apparently carried within him, a genetic anomaly that might mean the difference between humanity's extinction and its continuation. Matt's hand tightened around his weapon as he glanced at Diane, then at Logan clutching his tablet, his jaw clenched and unclenched. We'll meet your people, he said finally, after we find our children. He pulled out the worn photograph from his breast pocket, its corners soft from countless handlings, and tapped the faces of Maddie, Seth, and David. Arizona first, after we regroup with Sam and Mary, his voice dropped. Eleanor's violet eyes darkened as she watched the distant dust clouds growing on the horizon. Her fingers trembled slightly as she touched the silver pendant at her throat. The hell jumpers won't wait, she whispered, and neither will the others. As they hurried towards the vehicles with the sounds of pursuit growing louder behind them, Matt found himself thinking about the world that had been lost. Civilization that had crumbled under the weight of the plague. He had watched humanity splinter into factions driven by fear, faith, vengeance, and power. Each believed they held the answer to survival in the ashes of the old world. Matt Singleton, a man who had always felt slightly out of step with the world due to his autism, now had the power to reconnect humanity with its lost future. His null field, something that hasn't even happened yet, would change the world. The weight of the idea is suffocating. Behind them, dust clouds billowed on the horizon as Helljumper's vehicle slundered closer. The convoy screeched to a halt, and General Hawk emerged from the lead vehicle, flanked by a silver-haired woman whose violet eyes mirrored Eleanor's unsettling gaze. The General's voice cracked through the bullhorn coming across the distance. Singletons, I know you're watching. I believe I have something that might interest you. Diane's breath caught in her throat as two familiar figures stumbled into view. Sam and Mary, their wrists bound with zip ties, being roughly hauled from behind the transport. As if to punctuate his point, one of the soldiers drove a rifle butt into Sam's side, drawing out an agonized cry that echoed across the landscape. Matt turned to Eleanor, his voice barely above a whisper. Do you see how this ends? Eleanor's violet eyes clouded. Yes, she murmured, but you won't like the answer. General Hawk's voice cut through the desert air. Every moment you hesitate costs them. The guard's open palm cracks across Mary's cheek, leaving a bright red welt. Behind Matt, a shimmer of heat distorts the air around Brendan's clenched fists. Diane's eyes narrow to focused slits, her body coiling with tension. Nearby, two thick branches rise from the ground, suspended in midair as Logan's gaze locks onto the man who struck his sister. Eleanor's lips brush against Matt's ear. This isn't the fight you can win, but I know you'll do whatever you have to protect the family you love. The future rests in your hands, she whispers, before slipping past the Singleton family and vanishing into the settlement's shadows. Time's up, the general announces, his voice carrying across the distance. Mary and Sam collapse forward, his shoulders kick the back of their knees, the barrels of assault rifles pressing against their skulls. Matt's gaze darts between his daughter's defiant face and Sam's bloodied one, turns to Diane, whose expression has hardened into grim calculation. There are too many minds to control simultaneously, she says, fingers trembling at her temples. I can't reach them all. The hourglass empties in Matt's mind, seconds trickling away while Mary and Sam kneel at gunpoint. His jaw tightens. Whatever horrors the Helljumpers have planned, he won't sacrifice his family to find out. Diane's eyes flutter closed, her consciousness pressing against each of their children's minds, implanting the strategy without a word spoken. Like a single organism with four bodies, the singleton surged forward in perfect coordination. The general's thin lips curl into a smile as the singletons step out to the open. I knew you'd see reason, he calls across the distance. He turns slightly, nodding to someone Matt can't quite see. Take the shot, he commands. And before Matt can react, a tranquilizer dart hits him square in the chest, and darkness crashes down like a collapsing building. Matt awoke, nearly dislocating his shoulder. His hands were cuffed and anchored to the floor by a chain. His family wasn't near him as he started to panic. His wife's voice echoed in his head. Finally, was worrying they had killed you. Before you ask, yes, we are all fine. Logan is with me. Brendan, Mary, and Sam are together somewhere behind us. We're headed east toward Missouri. You've been out for about a day. Now that you're up, we can finish the plan. A plan for what? Matt asks. Jailbreak, escape, I don't care what you call it, but we aren't staying at Helljumper Hacienda, she replies. This isn't the time to be funny, Dee. Oh, I'm not joking. I've already got a tenth of a plan, Diane says with pride. That isn't a plan. It's just enough to get us all killed, Matt replies. Nope, it's enough to start some good trouble. The hellhounds have been running all over Missouri and northern Kansas looking for one man and his family for the last 6 weeks, and had briefly returned to headquarters to resupply and rest as ordered. His hellhounds had been in some fucked up situations, but nothing prepared him for a summons to the command center on zero notice. Hawk himself at the head of the table, red eyed and vibrating with adrenaline. Archie arrived with Bond, who still looked hungover from the night before. Amber trailed, pale as a ghost, but upright. Alita and Tiant completed the set, uniforms hastily zipped, weapons checked, but for once not loaded. Smith walked in and sat in silence, watching everyone from the back of the room. Hawk wasted no time. We have them, he said, stabbing a finger at the cracked monitor in front of him. We were checking a seer location, ended up doing a recruitment sweep in Topeka, Kansas. Cita didn't count on dumb luck playing in our favor. The screen rolled through a sequence of grainy footage. First, a weathered man, bald head, auburn, with salt and pepper beard, with duct tape glasses. Then a woman, mid-40s, blue eyes, and a dangerous smile moving through a battered doorway. Next, a tall, hunch-shouldered teen with lopsided cropped hair and hands that glowed faintly blue and orange, walking hand in hand with a smaller boy with greasy brown curls and a blank, preternatural calm. Behind them trailed a couple, maybe late 20s, early 30s, lean faces, etched with exhaustion and defeat. They're locked down, east sublevel. You'll be escorting them to Scrape's lab for processing. Archie scanned the files. This is the guy? Matthew Singleton, Hawk said, as if that answered everything. The others are family, blood, or marriage, doesn't matter, all post-human, all dangerous. Smith chimes in from behind the group, holding the briefing file. The older female is Diane Singleton. I suspect telepathy. The boys are Logan and Brendan Singleton. Shorter one is Logan, nonverbal autistic with what appears to be telekinesis, unknown on his ability to control it, given his neurology and deficits. The taller one is Brendan, pyrokinesis with refined control, says, here everyone is sedated and compliant at the moment. What about them? Bond muttered. Hawk's eyes narrowed. Sam and Mary Early. He's a regenerator, she's a live wire with limited control. If Scrape gets what he wants, we may be able to add some meat to the grinder. If not, we dispose of them. The implication made Archie's stomach twist, but he said nothing. Questions? Hawk said. Nobody moved. Then go, zero screw-ups. He fixed Archie with a look that drilled holes into his skull. The fate of the world walks with that family. They had been warned about these folks for weeks. Now, looking at them, you wouldn't think they were dangerous, but looks can be deceiving and very fatal in this new world. The team prepped in silence, Bond adjusting his webbing with the focus of a man disarming a bomb. Linda and Tian exchanged
Girls.
They had been warned about these folks for weeks. Now, looking at them, you wouldn't think they were dangerous, but looks can be deceiving and very fatal in this new world. The team prepped in silence. Remy Jean, I'm going to string you up by your toes. Ooh, guys, hush. I will be with you momentarily. Yes, hi, I love you too. But you gotta stop. You all have been crazy. We will do this in a minute. Give me a minute. Give me a minute. Give me a minute. I love you, comment, but you gotta give me a minute. Bond adjusted his weapon with the focus of a man disarming a bomb. Alita and Tian exchanged wary glances and clearly rattled. Smith stood at the ready, cataloging threats no one else could see. Even Amber was on edge, her hands trembling as she checked her sidearm. They made their way to the basement holding cells. They walked past the guards, standing vigil just out of sight. Then layers of steel and doors with magnetic coated locks. Archie began to wonder if this was too easy. He recalled Sita's warnings. He looked at Amber's small look of weariness, and an understanding passed between them. She appeared to be just as conflicted as he was as they approached the holding cell. As they approached the holding cell door, the guards hit the lock and opened the door. Archie first entered, followed by Amber, who kept her eyes down. The Singleton family was lined up on a battered metal bench, hands zip tied and cuffed, faces empty of fear but heavy with something worse, certainty. Matt Singleton looked up, and in that instant, Archie understood what Hoggett meant. The man's eyes were old, even older than his weathered skin suggested. He sized up Archie with a single glance, then dismissed him, attention shifting to Bond, Alita, Tian, Smith, and Amber as if cataloging threats. Diane Singleton smiled, small and sharp, and said, "They sent the mutants. Isn't that a little poetic?" Archie ignored her. "On your feet. We're walking." They shuffled out, the Earlys at the rear, Sam slightly hunched, protecting his injured rib, Mary holding his arm. The boy with the curly brown hair, Logan, according to the file, walked with surprising dignity for a kid so obviously lost in his own head. The tall teen, Brendan, radiated silent rage, but never once broke eye contact with Archie. As they passed through the corridor, Archie felt a pressure at his temples, like a gentle hand trying to open his skull. He looked at Diane, who gave the faintest of winks. It was telepathy, subtle but powerful. She was probing, mapping out weaknesses, testing the waters. "Stay out of my head. You won't like what you find there," Archie hissed under his breath. Archie walled off his thoughts, trying to keep the memory of Sita's warning front and center. The game isn't played by heroes or villains, it's played by pawns who remember they can move sideways. He wasn't sure what it meant, but the image of the iceberg now locked in a pocket flashed in his mind. He walked to Scrape's lab with his death march. Guards snapped to attention as they passed. The surveillance cameras tracked every move. Bond flanked the group on the right, Tiant and Lead on the left, Amber and Smith behind with the Earlys. The last corridor was pure nightmare. They could hear Scrape's laugh from 30 meters away, high, reedy cackle that turned to humming, then muttering, then the wet noise of something being cut and recut. The lab itself looked like a slaughterhouse designed by a child. Tables covered with restraints and medical implements, jars of cloudy fluid lining the walls, the stink of formalin and rot that hit the gag reflex on contact. Dr. Scrape greeted them with a flourish and hands bloody to the wrist. "Wonderful! So many guests! Please, come in, come in!" He motioned for the family to enter, ignoring the muttered protest from Bond and Alita. Scrape circled Matt Singleton, ice hungry. "You're the man who will break the world, yes?" "Oh, don't be modest. I know your type. The anti-power, the last domino. If we can figure out what makes you tick, the future opens up like a flower," he giggled, fingers twitching. Matt stared at him, unmoved. He turned to Diane, who met his gaze with open contempt. "And you? You're the reason the seers can't find you, aren't you? Blocking the signal? That's clever. Messy, but clever." Diane said nothing, just squeezed Logan's hand a little tighter. Scrape gaze Scrape's gaze slithered toward Logan. "A mute specimen," he said, lips curling. "How disappointing. The screams are half the data." Heat rippled off Brendan's forearms as blue flames licked between his fingers, his knuckles white with restraint. Scrape's eyes gleamed at the blue flames. Such impressive pyrokinesis, he said, tapping a finger against a nearby metal surface, though these walls are lined with flame retardant composites, designed specifically for your kind. Not yet, Diane's voice sliced through Brendan's rage like cold water. His arms trembled once, then stilled as the blue flames reluctantly retreated, curling back beneath his skin with wisps of smoke trailing from his fingertips. Scrape, scrape, scrape clapped, delighted seeing the newfound compliance. Ah, Miss Evans, you're looking rather spry. Too bad. I could have used your eyes. Take them through. The holding cell is prepped. After that, I no longer need your assistance, Major. You're relieved. Archie hesitated, every instinct screaming that this was wrong. He glanced at Amber, who shook her head just enough to be visible. For a second, he considered doing something, anything, but the words of Sita haunted him. Remember, you have choices. He made his choice. He led the family into the inner chamber, watched as Scrapes tech strapped Singleton down, injecting him with something that made his muscles go slack. He watched as Matt Singleton closed his eyes as if already dead. At that moment, Diane looked over her shoulder at Archie and Amber, her eyes boring into both of them. You don't have to be their monsters, she whispered in their minds, after sensing their wariness. Then the doors closed, and the world outside was silent. Archie felt the weight settle in his bones. He turned to Amber, who stood very still, one hand pressed to her mouth. We're not monsters, he said, unsure as if it was a question or a wish. Amber reached out for his hand, his fingers cold but steady. We're what comes next. That's all. They left the lab, the sounds of Scrape's work fading behind them, and headed up into the morning light and across the grounds to the barracks. History's never been made by the people with the most to lose, Bond had said. And we will stop there for tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. If you are enjoying it, by all means, understand that this is a fledgling book, so there are mistakes, there are errors. It is available in paperback on Amazon. It is also available digitally on Amazon and digitally on Barnes and Noble. Hope everybody has a good evening, and I appreciate you coming by. Thank you for watching.